There are truths that move through civilizations as if they were fragments of an intelligence older than time itself. Truths that do not belong to any single culture but appear quietly across different eras and geographies, as if something, or someone, were trying to remind humanity of a knowledge long forgotten. Among these truths, a phrase attributed to Thoth, the mythical figure associated with wisdom, sacred writing, and the Hermetic laws, persists like a message meant only for those who truly listen. Reality has a hidden mechanism, and only a few will ever notice it. To be transparent, references to Thoth are not historical evidence in the modern scientific sense. They come from symbolic writings, Hermetic traditions, and esoteric interpretation. What is verifiable is that for thousands of years, Thoth represents the archetype of an intelligence capable of understanding the deeper structure of the universe. What is symbolic, and equally meaningful, is the notion that beneath everything lies a mechanism, a vibrational architecture that responds to human consciousness. And it is precisely this meeting point between verifiable science and symbolic wisdom that makes this theme so powerful. Quantum physics, neuroscience, and modern psychology increasingly describe a universe that looks far more like the ancient teachings than we expected. A universe where the observer influences the field, where perception alters the behavior of matter, where deeply rooted beliefs shape behaviors, physiological responses, and even life probabilities. This video is an invitation to move through these layers with clarity and depth, to understand not only what Thoth represented, but what this message means for you right now, in your current stage of life. Some people live decades without noticing a single sign of the hidden workings of reality. Others, however, perceive synchronicities, repeating patterns, sudden energetic shifts, intuitions that later prove true. What separates them? Talent, luck, or the ability to perceive the unseen mechanism? Before we continue, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, not only to support the work, though that matters deeply, but because every new subscription helps expand this field of awareness to more people. It strengthens a collective vibration, a conscious movement that the world urgently needs. When you like, comment, or share, you are quite literally expanding a vibrational field that goes beyond your individual experience. Now breathe deeply. Listen to this message with more than your rational mind. If these words are reaching you today, it is not by coincidence. Perhaps, just perhaps, you are one of the few who have begun to notice what most do not. When we speak of a hidden mechanism of reality, we are not referring to a literal machine, like gears turning inside a physical clock. What ancient traditions attempted to express, and what modern science is gradually beginning to detect, is the existence of an underlying structure, an invisible organization that shapes how human experience unfolds. It is as if we were living inside a field that is alive, sensitive, intelligent, and responsive to specific patterns of vibration and perception. And while this may sound mystical, part of this idea is supported by legitimate scientific observation. Historically, the writings attributed to Thoth do not mention quantum physics, but they speak of frequency, correspondence, and resonance in symbolic form. Modern physics, especially the double-slit experiments and studies on the observer effect, reveals something remarkably similar. Matter does not behave statically. It responds. It waits. It fluctuates. It awaits the conscious observer to determine its final form. What is scientifically verifiable is this: the observer influences the final state of quantum systems. What is symbolic, and explored here as a modern interpretation, is the possibility that this principle also manifests at larger scales of human experience. This bridge between science and spirituality is not fantasy. It is an emerging field where researchers, philosophers, and spiritual practitioners increasingly converge. The more this field grows, the more we understand that reality is not fixed. It is a dynamic process. With every emotion, thought, and focus you emit, you send into the field a vibrational pattern that reorganizes subtle probabilities. Perhaps you have felt this yourself. Moments when life seems to respond quickly to your inner state. Days when everything flows with surprising harmony, or times when life feels heavy, blocked, unresponsive. Neuroscience explains that mental states reorganize attention, behavior, and even how the brain interprets environmental signals. Reality does not magically change, but your interaction with it alters your trajectory in tangible ways. The hidden mechanism Thoth referred to, the one few people notice, is the silent interaction between consciousness, vibration, and the collapse of reality. Most people live on autopilot, repeating emotional patterns, feeding the same field they want to change, unaware that their internal states create probabilistic pathways. They do not notice that their inner world shapes the outer world. But once someone awakens to this, truly awakens, everything changes. They begin to see what was previously invisible. The synchronicities, the intuitions, the uncanny alignment of events that occur the moment inner coherence is achieved. And that is why I encourage you to write your affirmations, to comment, to record your intentions. These are not just words. They are vibrational codes that reorganize your inner field. Now that this foundation is established, in the next block we will explore how the human mind functions as a portal to different probabilities in the multiverse, and why this explains so much of what you have already felt in your own life. If there is a point where science and spirituality truly meet, it is here. The human mind is a portal between different possibilities of reality. This may sound metaphorical to some, but it is not merely metaphor. There are verifiable elements and symbolic elements, and we must distinguish them with clarity and honesty. What is scientifically verifiable? Neuroscience shows that your mind does not register reality as it is, but as it interprets it. The brain filters more than 90% of all incoming information before you become aware of anything. This filtering is based on memory, emotion, belief, language, and attention. In other words, you never see the world directly. You see it through an internal portal shaped by your vibrational and psychological state. What is symbolic and interpretive? The idea that this inner portal not only interprets, but selects probabilities of reality, which parallels, in a metaphorical sense, the quantum concept of wave function collapse. There is no scientific consensus on this, but there is an intriguing convergence between spiritual traditions, subjective experiences, and certain aspects of quantum mechanics, such as superposition and decoherence. What unites these perspectives is something undeniable. Reality is not entirely external. It is interactive. And this is where the idea of the multiverse becomes relevant. Although multiple reality theories remain speculative, they are mathematically plausible and widely debated. The many worlds interpretation is just one example, but it mirrors ancient teachings about timelines, planes of existence, and coexisting worlds. What does this mean for your life? That regardless of cosmological theories, one truth remains evident. Your inner state opens some possibilities and closes others. Each emotion alters your perceptual field. Each thought shapes a sequence of decisions. Each belief reorganizes your behavior in ways so profound that your entire external life may transform, depending on how you think, feel, and interpret reality. You may have experienced this during moments of deep personal change, when life suddenly feels like a new world, new paths, new people, new opportunities emerging in ways that were not present before. It feels as if reality shifted, and in many ways it did, because you shifted. This is why Thoth said, only a few will notice the mechanism. Most people do not realize they are living inside their own minds, believing they live in the outer world. They confuse the portal with the scenery. They believe their emotions are reactions to external events, when, in truth, they are reactions to internal processes that shape the outer environment they perceive. The mind is the threshold between realities. Each focus, each intention, each emotional pattern becomes an intersection, a doorway into a different version of your future. And once you understand this deeply, you stop being a passenger and become a navigator. The question shifts from, what will happen to me, to, which version of myself is creating the reality I am experiencing right now? In the next block, we will explore the point of choice, the exact moment your reality line shifts, and why almost no one notices it happening. There are moments in life that go unnoticed by most people, yet they mark the quiet beginning of an entirely new reality line. They are not dramatic scenes or grand revelations. Often, they begin with a deeper breath, a subtle inner clarity, a decision you never say out loud. And still, after those moments, something in your environment begins to rearrange itself. Events align, unexpected opportunities appear, obstacles lose weight, and you realize you are walking a path that simply did not exist before. This phenomenon is what we call the point of choice. The point of choice is not a vague metaphysical concept. It has roots in both vibrational understanding and psychology. Ancient spiritual traditions describe this moment as the instant in which a person becomes coherent with a new possibility. Modern neuroscience, in its own language, identifies abrupt internal transitions called state shifts, in which the brain abandons one pattern and adopts another, altering the way you perceive, interpret, and act in the world. Part of this is scientifically verifiable. The brain truly changes direction when your emotions, beliefs, and perceptions align consistently in a new pattern. And part of it is interpretive, the idea that this internal shift also reorganizes the probability of external experiences. Yet even as a symbolic interpretation, this concept resonates deeply with what countless individuals report during profound inner transformation. What stands out is that most people never notice their point of choice because they live in vibrational incoherence. They claim to desire one reality but continue to think, feel, and act according to another. It is like trying to walk north while your internal compass is locked on south. In this state, it does not matter how many goals a person declares. Their internal vibration remains tuned to the old reality. The point of choice happens when the vibration shifts before life shifts. It is the moment when something inside you stops sustaining the old story, when a fear loses strength without effort, when a limiting belief no longer feels true, when you stop being the version that was merely surviving and begin embodying the version that is creating. It is not a moment of rational declaration. It is a moment of inner recognition, almost always silent. It is when a new possibility stops feeling distant and begins to feel like your natural frequency. And once that alignment occurs, the external experience inevitably begins to adjust to match it. Reflect on the transformations you have lived. Notice how the external world changed only after you changed first. The deep inner decision always came before the visible results. The vibration reorganized before the circumstances did. This is why people so often describe the sensation as entering another world, even when everything around them still looks the same. This is the point of choice, the subtle instant in which you cross the threshold between who you were and who you are becoming. And by doing so, alter the reality line you are able to access from that moment onward. There is a reason why so many people remain stuck in the same patterns, repeating cycles that seem endless, even when they genuinely seek change. The reason is simple, yet rarely understood in depth. A single internal error, almost always unconscious, prevents vibrational transformation from stabilizing. This error is the instinctive return to the old emotional state, even after intellectually deciding to create a new reality. This does not happen due to a lack of willpower, but because of how the human brain was designed to keep you safe. From a scientific perspective, the brain prioritizes familiarity over happiness. It repeats what it recognizes, even if that pattern is limited or painful. Thus, the mind creates neural loops, thoughts triggering emotions, emotions reinforcing thoughts, forming an internal vibrational field that becomes the lens through which you interpret the world. This mechanism is verifiable. What we add here, on a symbolic and spiritual level, is the understanding that this emotional cycle is the vibrational field that determines which version of reality you can access. As long as the past dictates the vibrational temperature of your present, you will remain inside the same timeline, the one that resonates with your dominant emotional frequency. This silent error is responsible for 80% of spiritual setbacks. It is not lack of knowledge that blocks transformation. It is lack of emotional coherence. People desire new realities but continue to vibrate emotions aligned with the old ones. Without realizing it, they anchor themselves in the very reality they want to leave. Incoherence creates interference. Interference prevents the collapse of a new timeline, but there is a powerful, liberating truth. Coherence cannot be forced. and it is not created by repeating positive thoughts. It emerges naturally when you stop feeding the emotions that belong to the older version of yourself. It is as if one identity loses vibrational support, allowing another to arise effortlessly. This manifests in subtle signs. Certain arguments no longer matter. Certain worries lose their grip. Certain fears feel less convincing. Certain inner narratives dissolve without struggle. These signs indicate that the old vibration is fading, and that is the true beginning of transformation. Coherence begins when your thoughts, emotions, and actions start aligning in the same direction, even if softly. At this stage, the inner work becomes deeper and remarkably beautiful. You realize that you no longer need to fight the old version of yourself. It simply stops being vibrationally dominant. A new emotional gravity begins to pull you forward. A new storyline becomes available. A new reality line starts gaining expression. Life does not change first. You change first. And when your field stops oscillating between the old and the new, when your vibration no longer reflexively returns to the past, reality naturally begins to reorganize to match your newly stabilized coherence. When a person begins to move out of their old vibration and their internal field reorganizes, something very specific happens. They start noticing signs that once seemed irrelevant, disconnected, or random. But they aren't random. These signs have been described in spiritual traditions, mystical accounts, and, even more recently, research on perception, selective attention, and expanded consciousness. Each sign functions as a marker of a shift between reality lines, as if life were preparing the terrain for the vibrational field you are about to enter. One of the most common signs is an increase in meaningful synchronicities, events that could be dismissed as coincidences but are charged with deep subjective meaning. Psychologically, synchronicities occur when internal and external patterns converge. Spiritually, they are vibrational interpretations revealing that your field is aligning with new possibilities. As you enter a higher reality line, synchronicities stop being exceptions and become part of the vibrational landscape. Life starts responding as if speaking directly to you. Another strong sign is the recurrence of déjà vu, not in a clinical sense, but as if you were brushing against memories of a version of yourself that has already walked through that scenario. Some theories relate this to memory processing glitches. Others see it as subtle contact between converging timelines. Regardless of interpretation, the effect is the same. Your perception expands beyond linearity. There are also microtemporal distortions, the feeling that time stretches or contracts, that some days slip by rapidly while others feel unusually long. Science associates this with emotional states, focus, and inner rhythms. Spiritual frameworks interpret these fluctuations as vibrational adjustments preparing you for a different frequency. Another common marker is the appearance of repeating patterns, numbers, symbols, phrases, or encounters that show up again and again until they capture your attention. Part of this can be explained as attentional bias, but symbolically these patterns act as alignment markers, signaling that you are entering a storyline that reflects your inner coherence. Finally, there is a sign that almost always precedes major vibrational changes: the sensation that something is closing, even when nothing external has ended. It is a kind of inner depletion or completion, as if a chapter were concluding before the outer world acknowledges it. This isn't merely emotional, it is often the vibrational collapse of your bond with the previous reality line. This is the stage when many describe feeling between two worlds, not due to confusion, but because they no longer belong to the old, yet haven't fully stepped into the new. This sensation is profoundly valuable and should not be mistaken for instability. It represents the living transition between frequencies. Recognizing these signs is not superstition, it is vibrational literacy, the ability to read the field in which you exist. Those who learn to identify these markers begin to notice that reality doesn't change suddenly. It signals, it prepares, it adjusts, and when you respond consciously, it opens. There are practices that endure across centuries because they carry a symbolic precision that speaks to inner structures of the human mind. The so-called method of Thoth, although not a historical set of codified instructions, represents a synthesis of hermetic principles related to mind, vibration, and conscious reality creation. What is historically verifiable is that Hermetic texts emphasize three pillars: attention, correspondence, and coherence. What is symbolic, and used here in a modern interpretation, is the application of these principles to reality shifting. The first stage is expanded presence. This is not traditional meditation. It is the deliberate reorientation of attention to the sensory field of the body. Neuroscience confirms that body-focused awareness modulates neural networks responsible for emotional regulation and present-moment processing. Spiritual traditions describe this as anchoring in the now. Both point to the same mechanism. When you become present, the past loses influence over your vibration, and the future stops being an automatic continuation of your emotional memory. The second stage is coherent visualization. Science confirms that visualization activates brain regions similar to those used in real action, strengthening neural pathways that influence behavior, focus, and self-perception. Spirituality adds the idea that visualization emits a vibrational signature that aligns you with compatible realities. Whether you interpret this literally or symbolically, the outcome is observable. Coherent visualization makes people notice opportunities that others miss, and that alone reshapes results. The third stage is emotional coherence. Visualizing one reality while vibrating fear or doubt does not create a new field. It creates interference. Emotional coherence is not positive thinking. It is the ability to sustain an internal state compatible with the reality you wish to manifest. Coherence is regulated breathing, stable focus, relaxed body, clear emotion, aligned attention. When these meet, your internal field stabilizes and reality responds. The fourth stage is mental geometry. In Hermetic traditions, this appears as symbols, mandalas, or harmonic patterns. In modern psychology, geometric patterns act as attention-organizing stimuli, capable of inducing clarity and deep meditative states. Visualizing simple shapes, a triangle, a sphere of light, creates internal order. And when the mind enters order, the field follows. Finally comes the most subtle stage, the conscious witness. It is the moment you stop trying to control the outcome and simply observe your inner field. This reduces interference, softens anxiety, and allows the new vibration to solidify. The conscious witness is where you align with the hidden mechanism of reality, not through force, but through lucidity. The method is not complex, it is precise, and when practiced sincerely, it reorganizes your vibration and opens access to reality lines that were previously beyond your perceptual reach. Once we understand that reality is not a fixed stage but a responsive process, we begin to notice how life has always been in dialogue with our vibration, quietly but continuously. Most people believe destiny is rigid, predetermined, unavoidable. Yet, from spiritual, psychological, and even quantum perspectives, this idea becomes increasingly fragile. What we call destiny can be understood as the accumulation of the frequencies you sustain over time. This is not naive positivity. It is a mechanism in which emotions, mental patterns, and states of presence function as vibrational coordinates that determine which experiences you will perceive, access, and build. Cognitive psychology shows that beliefs shape perception. Neuroscience demonstrates that the brain selects information according to internal states. And quantum physics suggests that the observer influences probability. Spiritually, we interpret this convergence as evidence that each person lives within a vibrational range. Anything outside that range remains unseen or cannot manifest. A higher reality is not a distant place. It is a frequency you learn to hold. As that frequency stabilizes, new possibilities emerge not as miracles, but as natural consequences of inner alignment. Redirecting your destiny is not about forcing external change. It is about shifting your vibrational signature until reality, inevitably, responds. This shift is not sustained by intention alone, but by emotional maturity, the capacity to release old narratives, dissolve resistance, and act from the coherence of someone who understands that life responds first to being, then to doing. This shows up in concrete ways. You notice opportunities you once ignored. Clarity replaces anxiety. Precision replaces hesitation. Situations become permeable, relationships shift, paths open with a gentleness that feels improbable to anyone anchored to the past. And then a subtle, yet profound realization emerges. Destiny was never a prison. It was a mirror of who you were being, how you vibrated, the field you maintained daily. This is how reality responds. It does not impose, it reflects. It does not confine, it aligns. It does not punish, it resonates. Redirecting your destiny is, ultimately, redirecting yourself. It is replacing the vibration that binds you to old probabilities with the vibration that places you before new possibilities. And when this new vibration becomes familiar, not just desired but natural, the corresponding reality line reveals itself with clarity and strength. Creating a new life is not a sudden leap. It is the gradual refinement of consciousness until it becomes compatible with the version of the world you wish to inhabit. Throughout this journey, you've seen that what we call reality is not a fixed stage, but a living process that responds, adjusts, mirrors, and accompanies the inner movement of consciousness. From the symbolic teachings attributed to Thoth to modern insights from quantum physics, psychology, and neuroscience, the pattern remains unchanged. The external world is always an effect, never the cause. When you realize that your vibration is the language through which the universe reads your intention, something shifts. Fear loses authority. Doubt dissolves. The old identity fades like mist in the morning light. You stop fighting circumstances and begin tuning your field, knowing that this is where transformation actually happens. And here lies a fundamental truth. Reality does not require force. It requires coherence. Force is born from misalignment. Coherence is born from clarity. The moment you sustain, even briefly, a vibration that matches the life you want to live, the corresponding reality line begins to reveal itself. Not as instant magic, but as the natural unfolding of paths, choices, encounters, and perceptions that were previously outside your vibrational range. If you've come this far, something has already shifted within you. And that shift is not intellectual, it is vibrational. You recognize the mechanism behind human experience. You recognized its sensitivity and responsiveness. You recognized yourself as part of it. So before we close, leave the imprint of this recognition. I choose the highest timeline. Write it in the comments if you feel called. Write it in your journal. Write it for yourself. This act is not symbolic. It is vibrational consolidation. And, as shared earlier, affirmations you record, in the comments or in your personal journal, are more than words. They are vibrational codes. When you write, read, and repeat with awareness, you create an energetic circuit that reprograms the mind and anchors that new timeline into your field. Repeating them daily transforms vibration into identity. Finally, here is your closing seal. If this message resonated with you, share it. Help expand this field of consciousness, because every awakened person illuminates hundreds of others. Leave your comment, your vibration, your testimony, not just for engagement, but because your energy is part of this collective construction. And remember, the highest timeline is not a place in the future. It is a state of being, available here and now. May you walk in peace, in clarity, and in love. Until the next awakening,